Before we get into today's episode, I want to give you a heads up. This episode includes discussions about sexual assault, personal safety, police encounters, and other potentially triggering topics related to physical and emotional harm. If any of these are sensitive areas for you, please take care of yourself. You can pause, skip around, or come back to it when you are ready. Your well-being comes first. Although these issues are not discussed in detail, I understand that some things may be triggering. I hope you will stay and listen. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the College Sucks Summer Book Club series. I'm your host, Davia Samantha Davidson, and this is episode 4 of this series. A little something I'm doing to help us all slow down, reflect, and maybe pick up a few new habits while school's out. Today's pick is a book I believe should be on every college syllabus. How to Drag a Body and Other Safety Tips You Hope to Never Need. Survival Tricks for Hacking, Hurricanes, and Hazards Life Might Throw Your Way by Judith Matloff. The title sounds dramatic, but the book is anything but. It's smart, practical, and weirdly kind of comforting. If you have anxiety issues, it may be a difficult read. But the reality is we live in very strange times. We are at the heights of technological development, but there's so much unpredictability and uncertainty. Having a survival plan truly helps. I cannot suggest this book enough. College Sucks Summer Book Club Series, Book 4. Stay tuned. All right, let's dive into the book. This book is full of real, no-nonsense advice for keeping yourself and others safe in all kinds of situations. Think protests, natural disasters, sketchy travel moments, or just managing your fear in a crisis. Matloff doesn't lead with panic, she leads with empowerment. If you're alive in 2025 and plan to stay that way, you need this book's advice. It also has great tips for navigating situations like harassment, theft, or public emergencies, especially if you're away from home or studying abroad. This isn't fear-mongering, it's strategy. And trust me, the book is full of so many points, like so many things. And the way she says it, I read the Audible version, so I listened. And her narrator, because she didn't narrate the book, was just so like a friend who you trust, just giving you some advice, just saying, okay, if this happens, that's what you need to do. Just that type of thing, because she had amassed so much experience being a journalist who had worked in some really difficult, war-torn parts of the world. So when she's talking about how to drag a body, if you're in an emergency situation and you're with a friend, you might need to know the proper way to lift them up, which is in the book. So you have to get your copy to get to that. I'm not going to give that away, but there are some other tips from it that I think I could share with you. So I've decided to take 5 things from the book. So let me list them now so that I stay on topic, because I can ramble, especially with a book with so many valuable details. Like they're just tips after tips after tips. Like, for example, did you know that mosquitoes kill more people than wars? Look it up. It's true. All right. So I'm going to look at natural disasters, interactions with police, public transport, sexual assaults, and data protection. We live in Jamaica, well, I do, and it's hurricane season. So let's start there. What to do when the wind picks up, natural disasters on and off campus. So we tend to think a hurricane, well, Jamaica had a hurricane last year, Beryl, and it's so interesting what happened. So I work in St. Elizabeth, and I also live in Kingston. So during summer holidays, I'm in Kingston. And when the hurricane came, that's where I was. And there's this thing called a microclimate. So you might be, even though Jamaica is a small island, you might be in one town, one district probably even the next house, and rain might be falling on me and not falling on you. I mean, Bob Marley said, when rain falls, it doesn't fall on one man's housetop. And that's not necessarily true. I've literally seen it, that it can. So what happened with the hurricane was how it impacted some parishes more than others. So I was in Kingston. I was never out of electricity for any long period. My internet never went down. My cell service never went down. I could watch TV while it was going on. I'm not kidding. Like, we did what we needed to do. We did have some flooding just because of where our house is, but that was it. But can I tell you, when the smoke cleared, or when the rain stopped, or when the wind ended, and I went down to St. Elizabeth, it was like I have visited two different countries. There were downed light posts. So I know that there was no cell service, there was no electricity there for 2 whole months. And I learned a valuable lesson. Okay, do not leave your refrigerator anywhere plugged in for any extended period, because you do not know what's going to happen. And trust me, you do not want to clean a fridge post a hurricane without electricity. I saw things I never want to see again. So it is possible for one parish, one community to experience something greater than another. A lot of people lost their roofs, lost their houses. Like, it was a lot. And I think one of the things I found most interesting was how many students were telling me that they couldn't eat. Like, they had to be eating so much snacks because they either had electric stoves at home, or they just didn't have any cold storage, no refrigeration. So, and they don't eat canned food. That for me is a shocker. I don't know if it's because, well, I grew up poor, so, and back then canned foods were cheaper. Weirdly enough, sometimes canned foods can be so expensive, but nonetheless, when I went to university, I had a lot of my meals out of cans because, for one, you could store that in your room so you didn't have to worry about anybody stealing it. And two, it's just quicker and more convenient. There's so many young people I come across who don't eat canned food. And I'm like, we live on an island. At any time, we can have a hurricane. I mean, Haiti is our neighbor. They've had devastating earthquakes. You are without any kind of utility for weeks on end. How are you going to survive if you can't, eat foods that's stored in cans? And I think a lot of it might be pride or not being exposed to it. But if you plan to make it through life, if you want to I don't even know how to explain it. If something happens and you're trying to survive, being able to eat canned foods is one of the things. Now, some people might have allergies to some of the things or don't like it, but there must be at least one thing that does not require refrigeration, other than these salty foods, when you might have a challenge with water, or you might have a challenge with your own health. You already are hypertensive, although canned foods contribute to that. They're not really helpful in those situations. All I'm saying, having canned tuna has to be better than having potato chips every day. So in thinking about what can happen, you have to be prepared to nourish yourselves. It's one of the first survival things in any kind of crisis. Like, you need water, you need food, you need shelter. And just being able to eat out of a can is like the basics. Matloff states that the first step is to know what kinds of disasters happen in your area. So it's not what's trending, because like I said, what happened to me in Kingston was not what was happening to people in St. Elizabeth, people in St. Mary. If you live by the sea, you're having a different experience. If you live up the mountain, you're having a different experience. So you need to know what is expected to happen in the space in which you currently are, and what you can do to mitigate, to manage what's happening. So She has this rule in terms of preparing. She calls it the 72-hour rule. In the book, she highlighted that you need to be able to survive for at least 3 days. 72 hours without outside help. And sometimes, depending on the areas that you live, you may be cut off. So you need to make sure that you have a basic disaster survival kit. And I know when you are in university, money is tight, but you and your family, you need to have a plan. And here are some suggestions for what you need to have in this 3-day disaster kit. So, water, at least 1 gallon per person per day. So, that means 3 gallons of water. You need non perishable food. So, think canned beans, energy bars, crackers, bread can last for a little while, so you can do those. You need to have flashlights and you need to have batteries, and you need to routinely check and make sure that these batteries are good and that you have enough, and make sure that you don't store your batteries in your flashlight, because a lot of times by the time you're ready for it, there's corrosion and it cannot work. You need a phone charger or power bank, and you need first aid kit and extra medications. So normally when there is a hurricane announcement or warning, we get at least, sometimes it's 5 days out. They see something brewing. I think, at least I can say this, I believe that the Met Office in Jamaica really does a good job. So we get ample warning. A lot of people go to the supermarket. Sometimes they say the hurricane never comes, so some people don't bother. I'm not the best at the supermarkets. I'm not picking that as my activity, but I will make sure that there are candles, flashlight, batteries, and water for sure. There's always canned food, so I know I'll be okay with that. But for me, medication. So I always try to make sure I have at least a month's supply, because like I said, you don't know what can happen. It could be really difficult before anything starts to come back into the island. People were not able to fly in and out of Jamaica for at least a day and a half, 2 days. I mean, it didn't affect the whole island. It was mostly, some parishes that had the boat of the damage, but yet still, there were inconveniences, so you have to be prepared for that. You need copies of your ID and emergency contacts. Now bear in mind that sometimes your phone, even I said in St. Elizabeth, they didn't have electricity for 2 months. Okay, the 72-hour rule doesn't really work there. So you may want to have contacts, key contacts written out, because remember, we don't know anybody's phone number. We just tell Siri to call whoever. We would not be able to recite offhand a lot of people's numbers. So make sure that you have those written out. She even mentions having cash on hand, because when the Wi-Fi and the electricity go out, bank transfers, Cash App, Zelle, and credit cards, they don't mean anything. You need to make sure that you have money, and money talks, especially in a time of disasters. Another thing that I don't find that a lot of people talk about, I mean, we've gotten a little bit better in Jamaica talking about mental health and stuff, but Matloff emphasizes something that a lot of us don't think about on the surface. Disasters are disorienting. You won't think clearly. So that's honestly not the time to start planning. You'll forget simple steps. That's why preparation matters. It frees up your brain to focus on the situation, not scramble for the basics. So when you hear that a storm is coming, you don't rush to the shop and panic buy tuna and candles. Start building your hurricane stash. Like at the beginning of the hurricane season, start getting your canned items together. Start getting your candles together. Start having your batteries right beside your flashlight. Don't be putting them in two different places. And when I say disasters can be disorienting, I remember during COVID, okay, how you would see people on TV just buying tons of toilet paper. So they would buy toilet paper. What else would they buy? I can't remember, but toilet paper was like the big weird thing. Like it was a pandemic. Why do you think you're going to be having the runs the whole time? But I remember my sister and I, because we had to be home, and you would have like a pod, like the people who could come to your house and who you were hanging out with all the time. My sister was one of those persons who, by the way, I must say, if I'm ever in a disaster situation, she's a Virgo. She's definitely the person I want to be with. She is prepared for everything. Okay, take one ride with her in her car and tell her you have a headache and you need a pillow or you want wipes, or listen, she has everything. I definitely, if I'm going to be stranded on a deserted island and I can only bring three things, she's one of the things for sure. And I think she probably does already know how to drag a body. Anyway, so during the pandemic, we went to the supermarket and we were hearing rumors that there was going to be a lockdown again. So you wouldn't be able to leave your house. And listen, Jamaica was very strict about it. Like, people went to court, had fines, one mega things the police were enforcing because the hospitals couldn't manage. So anyway, we hear this rumor and we go to the supermarket because we were baking apple pies. That was one of the ways in which we coped. I'm not a baker. She is, but I don't think she'd ever made an apple pie. And so we made it something that we did. So we heard this rumor that the place is going to shut down. Do you know what we went to the supermarket and bought? Things to make apple pies. Because at one point, your brain just cannot take any more. It can't. You are disoriented. You're not thinking straight. And so we get back to my house and she's like, wait, no, by the way, my house most times always has food. But she's like, wait, we don't have water. We don't have, we went to the supermarket and we bought things to make an apple pie. Why would we do that? Like, we were laughing and tearing up at the same time because we were laughing at the people buying toilet paper, and here we were equally buying something so ridiculous. I say all of that to say, I've told you this ridiculous story to make the point that no matter how sharp and smart you are, when it comes to disaster, you have no way of knowing how it's going to affect your mentals. So the least things you have to think about, the better it is for you, so that you don't end up buying apple pie materials when you needed water. The final tip on disasters, because I'm going so long now, is that you need to make a plan. If you're on campus and you can't leave, so let's say it's a freak storm, you need to make a plan with your roommate, with the people who live on the same floor with you in your home. You need to make a plan with whoever you live with, and you need to assign roles to people. So like I said, I don't want to be the one to go to the supermarket because I'm just going to come back with items to make an apple pie. That's not going to be helpful, and that's not my strong area. So you have to give me something else to do. In your house, look around and see who can do what and who necessarily can't manage as well. Like, don't put anybody in a rough situation. I am horribly afraid of hurricanes. I don't like them. I don't like the wind. I don't like seeing trees swing. Some people find it exciting. I find it scary. In my house, everybody knows my bedroom windows have to be banned because I don't want to see it coming. I'm not the type. So also just be mindful of what any person's fear is. And with a plan, you'll be able to manage it. All right, let's quickly move into when the police show up, what to know, what to do, and how to stay safe. Now, Jamaica has come a really far way in terms of how police interact with citizens. I have noticed a change. I remember when I was growing up, it never took nothing for somebody to have an interaction with police and to not make it home okay. You know what I mean? We have really come a far way, but still there are interactions I have seen on social media where people have gotten themselves in problems. They have allowed a crowd to boost them up and, they get themselves in problems. They either get injured, arrested, or worse, they lose their life. We don't want that for anybody. So when it comes to dealing with the police, in the book, she states something so profound and simple. Police have guns, batons, and they are allowed to use them. And no matter how much you talk about your rights and they can't do that, or when they have done it, there's nothing you can do with it after if you're alive to do it. It's no fun when somebody else has a gun. All right. So you just want to make sure that when you're dealing with them, you try your best to stay measured and respectful. You can handle anything after, but in the moment, You just need to do what you need to do to get out safely. Here are the tips. Rule 1, stay calm and stay in control. Matloff says the biggest things you can control in the moment is your reaction. Your body wants to panic, your mouth wants to go off, but the calmer you stay, the more power you keep. And she's not saying stay calm in a kind of gaslighty way when you say, shrink yourself or make yourself small. What she's saying is that you need to breathe, you need to focus, you need to be strategic. You are your own best advocate in that moment. You need to read the room. You need to have nunchi to just know whether this officer is cool and chill and it's going to be going okay, or whether this officer has a point to prove and they're going to prove it on you today. And no matter what you do, don't allow other people to boost you up to do something stupid. The ego is a powerful thing, and you and it could end up in a problem. The next thing is to know your rights, but also know the risk. Your rights are no good if you don't have any witnesses, if you're alone, if they are more than you, that kind of thing. So she says, speak up for yourself, but choose your safety first, always. So don't escalate things. Document, ask for badge numbers, ask for names. I've been in cars with police already when I wasn't driving, and they want to ask me a question, and I will always say to them, officer, with all due respect, I'm merely a passenger. I was not driving the car. I wasn't paying attention. You know what I mean? Like, I try to be left out of the situation as much as possible. I don't want to go there. And I know I have a very strong tone, being a teacher and all, and some of them don't take nicely to it. So I really try to minimize how much I speak to them. Some of them are really nice. My father used to be a police officer. My godfather is a police officer. But at the same time, I know that some of them, they just want you to be the 13th reason, and I'm just telling you, don't do it. Also, try to be careful in documenting them. Like, you could say, officer, just to make sure that I understood everything you said, is it okay if I introduce my camera if I use it? Yes, legally you're within your rights to do so, but sometimes it really sets them off. So like I said, you want to read the room, read the situation, and just be smart about it. Be safe, be quiet if you must, and then you can deal with everything after you get home. All right, the next thing, taxis, buses, and strange beds. Staying safe when you're not at home. So this is one that's very serious. Taking public transport. A lot of students have been robbed, assaulted, have found themselves in very tragic circumstances just from taking public transportation. It really should not be that way in 2025. I cannot emphasize that enough, how sad it is that as a community, and not only in Jamaica and other parts of the Caribbean, but in the world, in the US, in the UK, all over the world, any place that's urban or where they don't have strict controls with crime, you're always going to find somebody who is malevolent and who just wants to harm you. Like, they literally wake up in the morning and they're thinking, who can they kidnap, who can they assault, who can they rob? Like, I'm sorry to say, it's really sad, but people like that exist, and you really have to try to have your wits about you. So you need to make sure that you travel in groups as best as is possible, and think about it this way: the daylight is your friend. I used to love to travel in the evenings because I love to procrastinate and I used to put it off. And I remember once being in a situation in a taxi in the night that woke me up. Like, I had to dig and use my strong, stern teacher voice to tell the taxi driver that I was not comfortable with whatever they were showing on the TV screen, and that it was setting me up, and if anything, he should let me out right near this police station. And listen, everybody was so whipped into shape in that moment that they made a joke that, okay, let's put on some Grace Thrillers, and I said yes. With that, they're a gospel group in Jamaica, if you don't know the reference. But that just really woke me up about being, just because something has not happened to you, it's never been your story, it's never been your situation, you cannot let your guard down. There are people where this is their job, and so you owe it to yourself to be safe. So travel in groups, travel in the day, make sure people know where you are, track your location, make a visible point to take a picture of the taxi license plate, be on the phone, be vocal. If you're in a taxi, female in the night, sit behind the driver. Make sure you have a handbag with a strap. Okay? And just put in those words in Google and you know exactly what to do. Make sure that you have some kind of thing to take care of yourself. Be careful now, because sometimes when you introduce a weapon into a situation, it may also be able to be used against you. But I'm saying make sure you have some kind of thing that you can use if you need to kick, if you need to fight, if you need to scream. Matloff's aim in this book was not to scare you, and I'm really hoping I'm not scaring you, but you need to be really, really conscious because it is a reality. So, like I said, traveling the day, traveling groups, let them know, let everybody know that you took a picture of the taxi, you took a picture of everything, you are on the phone, you're being vocal, you are paying attention, you are aware. You, as best as is possible, sit by the door and make sure the child's lock is not on. Okay, when the driver isn't looking, you can open the door and look right in the door hinge to just make sure, because I'm telling you, there are the bad people out there, guys. Bad people. So you need to make sure that you're sitting with intention. Now let's talk about when you stay somewhere for the first time. So sometimes you meet a friend at school and you want to go to their house and that kind of thing. Listen, you have to work with your vibe and try not to make friends too early. Right? So if you're even going to their house, or if they're saying come for a weekend, go and spend a day first. Size out the place, see the place, see what kind of vibe you get before you decide that this is somewhere you're going to go and sleep. I've heard too many horror stories. Okay? And if you go and you stay with them, what's the setup? How many, if you're female, how many men are in the house? Who are these men? Could you take them in a fight? Are you agile enough to run from them? You know, that kind of thing. Are they respectable people? Like, I'm sorry, it's just the reality of the situation. And a lot of times we let our boundaries down, or we relax too quickly. You've met someone, you've known them for a month, the next thing you're staying a weekend with them. No, it can't work like that. Go for a day. You can get back home. You size it up, you feel it out, and definitely go with your gut. And in all of these cases and situations, you make sure that you're checking in. When you move on campus, yes, there's security, but you never know what's happening. So make sure every time you go in your room, you close the door. You talk to your roommate about it as well. We keep our doors, we keep our windows closed, please. Like I said, there are people who wake up daily and their intention is just to be a problem to other people. Don't let any of them catch you. All right, again, I'm at the sensitive part of this book, and I've been in two minds about whether I was going to cover the topic of essays. I'm not going to say it out again because I think YouTube has rules, but we need to talk about it. I've known too many persons who have been victims of this. I want to illustrate that at no point is it ever the fault of the victim. Okay? I just want you to know that if this has happened to you, Jamaica does not have a statute of limitations on this particular crime, and it can be reported at any time. If you want justice, there's still ways to do it. I definitely wanted to tell you that. Now, this is very heavy, and I know a lot of you would be tempted to skip this part, and I get it. It's uncomfortable. But here's the thing. Silence protects predators, and awareness protects you. Matloff approaches this chapter directly and without shame. It's not about victim blaming or scaring you into hypervigilance. It's about strategy, boundaries, and knowing what to do before, during, and after something goes wrong. So let's get into it. So consent is the floor, not the ceiling. From the beginning, make it very clear. No. Okay, because essays are not about the act itself, it's about power. And it happens in on halls, not, all the time you hear these reports locally and internationally. It happens at parties, it happens during travel, it happens in relationships. Half of the time, some of the persons who seek to essay other persons are known to them and in their families or close friends, people who should be trusted, and this is what they use to get their way in. So, I'm going to give you the tips that Matloff offers when dealing with these situations. So she says you need to establish verbal boundaries. If you are in a situation where you feel uncomfortable with someone, say very strongly to them, I feel as if you're making an advance. No. And try to get out of the space. Say, I don't want that. I'm not comfortable. No. You don't owe anybody any explanation about your body. Tell them no and move out of the space. If you feel trapped, you need to create a space and a barrier between you and the person. If you notice that you feel unease, listen to your gut. Ask to go to the bathroom and then find a way to go and don't come back. If you have your phone, call, drop your location, start screaming if you need to. It is better for you to have screamed, carried on, and the person says, oh, you were just overreacting, and the least that comes out of it is people know you're not to be messed with and leave you alone. A lot of times women are afraid of overreacting and then something serious happens. Overreact. Okay? Scream, say you feel uncomfortable, you want to go, do what you need to do to get out of the space. You need to know your exits. So if you go somewhere, if you're at a home, you need to know how to get out the fastest way. Is there a window you can break and climb through? What can you do? You must always know your exits. When you are around strange people, try not to become intoxicated. Always watch your drink or don't drink at all. Okay? And go with somebody who can drag a body. They know what to do in a dangerous situation. Somebody you trust. And always, I can't emphasize this enough, go with your gut. So what is it that we want you to know? You can set boundaries without being rude, or even if you have to be rude. You can say no after you've already said yes. You can be in the middle of it and you decide you don't want it anymore. You have a right to stop, get up, and move out of that situation. You don't have to make others feel comfortable at your expense. Like I said, scream. It is better to say, okay, I may have overreacted when you're safe. If unfortunately something happens to you, find safety first. Get somewhere you feel physically safe. The next thing, call someone you trust. Could be a friend, an advisor, somebody who works at the school, or a hotline. Don't feel pressure to report immediately if you don't want to. You don't have to go right away. Preserve evidence if possible. So if you can do without taking a shower, which I know is the weirdest thing to say to you after something so vile has happened. But okay, let's say you take a shower. It's not ideal, but don't wash any clothes that may have DNA evidence on it. All right. And if you choose to go to the hospital or report to authorities, you have a right to take someone with you for support. You don't have to go through any of this alone. Given my experience in student services, this chapter was hard, but it's honest. I wish I could share it with every young woman that I know or come in contact with, because the world teaches women to feel embarrassed, to feel ashamed when they are the ones who have been violated. All right? It depends on us to stay quiet. Okay, I'm back. The part talking about essays was just, it was so heavy. So I was like, okay, I went to bed and today's a new day, and I'm going to wrap up this episode by talking about data protection and data privacy. Now, many a student, or not even students, many a person has been violated by somebody breaching their data privacy. And so Matloff is saying this is the new age. She actually says in the book, the internet is a dangerous place. And that is profound, and that's the truth. You have to be so careful. So I'm going to quickly talk on some of the things that you need to be mindful about. Women and men sending nudes to people that they can save. And don't think about sending it in one view, because most people have more than one phone. So all they'll do is take a picture with the next phone. You know what I mean? A young woman in Jamaica, she was abused, and she sent a photo of herself, like the physical harm that had happened to her friend, her trusted friend. And those pictures ended up on the internet. And even though she sent it in one view, her friend took a photo of it. Yes, it brought awareness about the harm that had happened to her, but she was in a vulnerable space, and I don't think that was her intention, for people to see her partially nude body with these bruises on it. So if you worry about it, just don't do it. Okay? Even if you're in a great relationship with someone, tell them to make sure their memory is good. They know what you look like, because you just can never tell. There's so many cases of revenge porn that has happened. Just try your best, especially when you're young and female. Like, it's not so bad for the men, I have to say. But when it's a girl, it's like they've never seen the female body before, the way they behave. So let's not do that. Don't leave your devices open. And when I say open, I don't mean like, okay, you're in the library on your laptop. Yes, that. But also your phone. Everybody in 2025 should have a privacy screen and double encryption. Like iPhones, you have to use your face to open it. I think it's the best thing. I don't know people who say they don't have passwords on their phones, or they're married and they don't have anything to hide. Your information is not only available if you're not doing that when you go to work, when you go out to dinner, somebody just picks up the phone. Not only do they have access to the things you have in there, but they have access to the conversations other people have had with you. I often say, if somebody got into my phone, I'm concerned about the conversations I'm having with my sister, who is my trusted friend, and my close friends. Like, we talk a lot of crap, and I would not want anybody to have access to that. Everybody is entitled to a level of privacy. I honestly believe that. Privacy is what allows us to be ourselves. So you need to be careful about leaving your devices open. Many a person has been outed from something like Facebook Messenger, iMessage, WhatsApp messaging. Just be careful. Yes, you have nothing to hide, but in this day and age, you sure do. You don't want everybody to have access to every single thing that you know. And also, like I said, it's not your information alone. It's other people's information. In WhatsApp messages, you can find other people's bank accounts info, that kind of thing, things they've told you. So come on now. You have to do better with your passwords as well. Some of you just choose the easiest, simplest things, and you have it across devices. Now, listen, I understand, because as I age, my memory is not the best. And so, of course, one password makes it easier. But the thing is, with one password, they can access everything. So you have password managers that help to generate passwords for you and will keep it in your cloud for you. You need to look into that. And also, just know, as you're growing and you're developing as a young adult, how you feel today is not how you're going to feel tomorrow. And so opinions that you may have, you don't want them to come back to haunt you. Be careful about that tweet. Be careful about that Instagram post. Be careful, because they never die. They will come back to get you. And just be careful about what you post. Not everything is meant for the public. You don't have to take a video of yourself being drunk. You don't have to take a video of yourself being provocative and all of those things. You don't need it, because you don't know where your future is going to take you. And once you put it there, it's owned and not by you. So just bear those things in mind. All right, this episode has been heavy, it has been long, and so I am going to wrap up here. But I'm telling you, you need to get this book. Even if you don't read it all in one go, I just feel like it's a survival guide for this life that we're in. I was on Instagram and this man said that death is becoming creative. And so you owe it to yourself to be a little bit more like, I can't even remember the word that he said. I did write it in my phone, but he's basically saying you need to be more creative in trying to save your own life. Yes, that's basically what he said. And so you have to be mindful of that. Oh, and one more thing on data protection. I have seen many of students crash out from losing their thesis the day before it's due, an assignment the day before it's due. Listen, email every draft to yourself. Okay, I have lost a lot of work. And I have a MacBook where you're not supposed to lose anything, but I have managed to lose things. So always back it up, okay? You don't want to be crying over work you've already done and then you still have to start over, because you know your lecturers do not care about that. They need their work. All right. So that's it for this episode of the Summer Book Club series. How to Drag a Body gave us a crash course in real world survival, from handling yourself on public transport to protecting your data to setting clear boundaries in risky situations. What I love most about this book is that it assumes you're smart, but maybe not fully prepared, and that's okay. Because the truth is, a lot of what we call adulting isn't common sense until someone breaks it down for you. If you haven't read the book yet, I really encourage you to pick it up. Even one chapter can shift how you move through the world. And if you've already been in some of these situations, now you've got the language and strategies to do things differently. Up next, we're switching gears, but staying just as focused. The next book in our Summer Book Club series is So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. It's all about work, passion, and why following your dreams might be the worst career advice you've ever gotten. So if this episode helped you, please like, share, subscribe, share it with a friend, tag us, leave us a rating. You know the drill. But seriously, it makes a difference. Thank you so much. Until next week. Bye.